Hello, this is Nora Ryan from Dreambuild Software, and this video is about our new feature called Flex Fields, specifically Flex Fields for jobs. Over the years, we have had many requests for additional fields in PST. The problem with that is that everyone has different ideas as to what those fields should be and how those fields should operate. So rather than creating 100 different fields that would clutter up everybody's screens, we have created a new feature called Flex Fields that will allow you to set up custom fields for your business process. These fields do not trade, but they could be invaluable for your processing of your jobs and understanding where jobs stand. For this video, we're going to focus on jobs, and I'm going to talk about how to set them up, how to set them in a job, and how to find them. So first, how do you set up flex fields? You're going to go up to the upper right-hand corner and click on the little down arrow and then hit Settings. You know there are several settings in PST. Now there's a new one called Flex Fields. Click on Flex Fields, and you'll see that there are 3 different types of flex fields that you can create. You can create flex fields for entities, which are servers, clients, and attorneys, jobs, or cases. We're going to focus on jobs here. So I'm going to click on jobs, and this is going to expand, and it's going to show you a screen that looks a little different than mine because mine has some flex fields defined already. Yours will be mostly blank. You will have a default tab that you can choose the name of. You will have the buttons to say add a tab, delete a tab, or add a field. Tabs are not required. Tabs are there if you want to organize your flex fields by various categories. If you only have 2 or 3 flex fields for jobs, you can probably leave them all on the first tab. I can add a tab by hitting the Add Tab button, and I can name a tab or I can rename a tab simply by typing in what I want for the name, and you'll see that has shown up, right? If I hit Accept, that tab is there. I can delete a tab by going to that tab, make sure you're on the tab you want to delete, and hitting Delete. You're going to get a big scary warning that tells you any flex fields that are on this tab will also be deleted. And that means you won't be able to see them anymore, including any data that you have entered in those flex fields for any jobs. So be very certain that you want to delete a tab. I'm going to say yes because I don't want that tab. In fact, I don't want this tab either. You can also add a field, and that's where you're going to want to start. You're going to add a field. If I click on add a field, it's going to ask me for 2 things. It's going to ask me for the name of the field, and it's going to ask me to pick the type of field that I want. There are various types. A single line text box. This would be good for alphanumeric reference numbers. A multi-line text box where you could put multiple items. So this could be notes, could be an address, anything that takes more than 1 line. A date field, a money field, a number field, which has to be an integer, no decimals allowed, and then a drop-down field. A drop-down field is where you will identify the choices they have to select from when filling out the field. I have some fields already defined. These are ideas for you guys to give you inspiration. You might have completely different ideas, so take these for what they're worth. On this first tab, I have something called, which I've called Job Phase. This is where you can add more granularity and put into each job where it stands in your internal business process. So I've come up with some intake, awaiting server assignment, on hold, skip tracing, things like that. I can add a new item, so I can say something like awaiting, oops, payment. All right. For each drop-down item, there are two values that you need to enter. The first is called label, and this is what the person will see in the drop-down list when they're selecting it. So oftentimes these will be long enough to be completely descriptive. The second is the value. This would be what is exported if you export this data into Excel or a comma delimited file format. I believe in 90% of the cases, you're going to want them to be exactly the same. So we have a checkbox that by default is checked on that says the value is going to be the same as the label. Okay. So I hit accept, and you'll see now that new item is there. The order in which they appear in this list is the order in which they will appear on the drop-down menu that the PST user sees. So if you want to move something, these little dots show that this can be moved. And I'm just going to move that up to be the second item instead of last. Okay. I can also delete any of these. So awaiting payment, I can delete it by hitting the little trash can. All right. You can also set one of these as a default. I would be careful about this if I were you. You want to make sure people assign a value that you want. So sometimes if you have a default, they're not paying attention and they won't fill out the field. So if none of these are highlighted, then the default is blank and the user has to select. All right. Anyway, the second example is the hold reason. So maybe instead of having a waiting prepayment in here or all these other things, you might just have on hold as its stage, and then the reason you might fill out as a separate field. So, and you'll notice for this one, I put a default, none, not on hold. Okay. So they would have to change it. If they put this on hold, then you would want them to change this value. Well, you might be changing servers. The client may say, hey, hold off on this for reasons you don't know. You might be waiting for address verification, or you might be awaiting prepayment. Again, these are just example reasons. You can create your own. All right. So that's for job phase. The next examples are reference numbers. We thought of a couple, you probably have more, but a QuickBook reference number. If you have want to tie this job to your QuickBooks and you have a reference number, you could put it here. You might have a server reference number or some kind of identifier if the server doesn't use PST, they're a different trading partner, and you might have some identifying number for them. Right. Dates. Came up with a few dates here. The date filed. You might want to know the date that the case was filed or the date that the return was filed. The alias summons issue date, the pluri summon issue date is important for some papers, so you might want to have those. And then fees. These are just some example. You could have service fees, kind of a generic name. You could have printing fees. You could have witness fees. Okay. So those are just some examples of the types of fields that we think you might want to set up. When you're done with all of this, you need to hit accept so that any fields that you add or change are changed. So now let's talk about how you enter this information. I'm going to go to jobs. Actually, I didn't need to go there, but I'm going to show you an existing job. Job 32. When you look here, these tabs are all familiar. The service information, the job settings, the invoice and server pay. There's a new tab called Flex Fields. Click on that tab, and here you see the flex fields that are here for a job. Now notice the flex fields have the tabs with them. So if you don't want people to tab through, maybe you put them all on one page, all on one tab. But anyway, so job phase. Right now, this is attempting, it's not on hold. But maybe I want to say, oh, you know what? I've changed and now it is on hold. And the reason is pending address verification. All right. I can put in reference numbers. You see, I've got them in here. Oops, I clicked on the wrong thing. Haha. Dates. I've put in a date for the file date. I don't have an alias or pluri-summons date. And then fees. I've put in fees. Now maybe something's happened and the fees are going up to $25 on this job for whatever's been going on. When I am done filling those out, I need to hit save so that those flex fields are saved. And that saves for the job. Okay. Now, what if I want for a new job? I'm going to hit the new job, add a job button. And you'll see we've got all the same information as before, all the same layout, except now we've got a flex fields area. Again, I can say, okay, this is a new job, intake, it's not on hold. I don't have any reference numbers yet. I might know the file, the date, and I know that there's some witnesses, so there's $30 in witness fees. Right? Once you fill out all the rest of the information and you hit add job, those flex fields will be saved with all of the other information that you've added for the job. I'm just going to cancel out of this though, because I don't really want that job. Now let's talk about how do you see flex fields and look at all your jobs and what those flex fields are. Well, you can just use your views. I'm just going to do this one because it's the easiest. This is the unfinished job report, the short version or the condensed version. You can do this in any view you want. If you have set up your own views, you can do that to your own views. If you don't know how to set up views, please let us know because it's a very powerful feature and we can send you some videos on that. But here we've got this job, these flex fields. We've got the job number, party to be served, etc. Now we want to add some of these flex fields. I'm going to go over to the column chooser. And when I click on that, on the left-hand side, you have all of the columns you could show in this view. On the right-hand side is the columns that you are showing. Flex fields, because they do not trade and because they're your specific things, we wanted to make sure that that was clear what were flex fields and what weren't. So all of your flex fields are going to be grouped together under F. Anything that has an F dash is a flex field that has been set up. So I can put phase and maybe hold reason and any of the others that I want, but those two make the most sense for me at the moment. And so I've added them over here. Now you can see where they are. Maybe I don't want them so low. I can drag them up. So I can put them right by job number. I can have phase. And you know what? I'm going to leave hold reason down here for the moment. I'm going to hit apply. Here are all the flex fields now, and you'll see that we've got hold reason and phase in there. Just want to show you, remember, you can move things in these views just by dragging them. So here we've got the hold reason over here. So now you can see there are certain jobs that we have set things on. All right. You can sort by them. You can filter by them and find jobs that are on hold for a particular reason. And of course, you can export any view that you've created by going to the export functionality, where you can export all the data in a search result to an Excel file, and that will include all of your flex fields. So this concludes the video about jobs and flex fields for jobs. If you have any questions about this, I encourage you to give us a call or send us an email. We'd be happy to discuss how flex fields work with you, your ideas for flex fields, and some initial pointers on how to set them up. And thank you very much.